Good morning. Welcome to another episode of Raise the Bar. I'm your host, Troy Haynes, and it's early here on the West Coast. It's 6:18 a.m. The reason I'm up so early is I have a guest who is available, but she's on the East Coast. So our guest today is Chloe Timberg. She's a pole vaulter, formerly of the University of Rutgers, and I'm gonna assume now continuing on in some capacity there. Don't know where she's going to be training, but I do believe she's going to be looking towards the 2028 games here in LA, which are now just a short 3 years away. So we will catch up with Chloe. I think it's been about a year at least. I seem to remember sometime in January, and I don't think it'd be this January. So it might even be a year and a half, something like that. So I do know she finished highly, both indoor and out, at the last NC2A championships. I don't know how she did at the US vault and if she qualified for worlds or anything like that, but she's an up and comer. See her on Instagram. She's got a decent sized following. And so we'll be playing catch up with Chloe. Before we get too much farther, I want to put in my shameless plug for bradnutrition.com. And Brad Kearns is a former world ranked number 3 in the world Ironman triathlete. He's in fantastic shape. He's now in his 60s. You saw Brad, you wouldn't think that he was in his 60s, but he is still a competitive athlete. He's working to get himself in shape for both the high jump and the sprints at the USATF Masters level. He's also a speed golfer and iron abs. And if you go to his site, bradnutrition.com, or listen to his BRAD podcast, you're just going to hear a lot of stuff about how to stay in shape as you get older. And one of the products that Brad champions is his whey protein isolate. I have used this drink. It's this powder. You mix it in with a smoothie or a shake, and you get 20 grams of protein per scoop. Excellent source of protein, especially if you don't like eating meat, which I do, but not all do. And if you're a vegan, vegetarian, and you're having trouble meeting your protein needs, guys, as we're working out as we get older, you got to keep that protein intake up. You got to keep that testosterone on the way up. Otherwise, your brain gets foggy, your muscles get weak, you start to break down. So I use that. And if you also want to try his new sports electrolyte drink, either of those products through bradnutrition.com, use my promo code. I'm an affiliate of Brad's. And if you use the code SkyHighFly10, which is all small letters, and it's SkyHiandFly, then the number 10, you'll get 10% off at bradnutrition.com. If you want to use Amazon to get that next day shipping, it's SkyHighFly10. That's SkyHighFly 10, all caps. And you get the same 10% discount from Amazon. So with that said, we are going to await the arrival of Miss Timberg in the green room, and we'll be right back.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Hey, there you are. I
Awesome.
can hear you.
Perfect.
All
I
right.
think I'm all set.
So I was telling in the preamble, I was like, I'm bright-eyed and bushy-tailed at 6:30 early out here. Are you still on the East Coast?
Yeah, still in Pennsylvania, so it's around 9:30
Awesome.
here. A little less early, but thank you so
Yeah.
much for waking up early and
Oh
making it.
no, it's I like I said, I gotta start teaching at 8:30, so
Gotcha.
don't want to get my little stuff done and not roll in at the last second looking unprofessional. I gotta get
Early
welcome
starts
Chloe
later.
Timberg to another episode of Raise the Bar. Our special guest is Chloe Timberg, a pole vaulter formerly from Rutgers University. Are you now free of the influences? Are you still training there? What's going on with you?
No, no. So I'm actually completely done training at Rutgers. Once I graduated, I moved back home and I actually went back to my old jumps club from high school. So I'm at Philly Jumps Club now. They have two co-owners, so it's Brian Monshine and Talon Singer, and I worked with Talon Singer in high school, but now that I'm post-collegiate, I'm working with Brian. So
Okay. So tell us, Chloe, for here in the US and as a track and field fan, I can honestly say I think I'm overqualified to be a track and field fan. And at the same time, it's not easy if you want to find results. Like you have to kind of know where to go, how
yeah.
to find who did what. So from the last time that we talked, how have things gone, both at nationals and any of the other big meets that you've been to?
Yeah, I guess it's been a while since we talked.
Yeah.
I think so. Kind of this outdoor season, I definitely struggled. I did not put up the marks that I wanted to, and I think I was getting super frustrated not seeing the results because I felt fantastic.
Mhm.
Felt fantastic. I think maybe mentally I just wasn't quite there, and it was really reflecting in how I was competing. So I don't think I jumped above 450, like all of outdoors, up until I graduated, and then I switched, like coaching environments. And then, yeah, I think at USA's, I ended up jumping like a 460 bar. So that put me somewhere around sixth or seventh. And, I was really, really happy that things were kind of starting to head in the right direction again. And then I was pretty consistent over 460 for the rest of the outdoor after I graduated. So it was really interesting to see kind of, how I had been struggling to jump 445, 450 for most of the outdoor season. And then, just getting myself into that better mindset and that better coaching environment really kind of just changed everything. And I was able to hit those consistent marks at 460. So,
Awesome. So this is a really unique time period here in the US because we have the Olympics, coming up in 3 years here in Los
mhm.
Angeles. And, for track and field, it's really the it seems like we go on a 4 year cycle basically. When the Olympics are
Mm.
here, man, everybody's into track and field. Here in the US, we love our track and field on Olympic years, especially because and I remember it being that way when I was a kid. When I was watching the
Mm.
Olympics, when the Olympics came on, of course, everybody was into swimming and gymnastics and, boxing and wrestling. I mean, whatever was on, right? It's like, oh, this is
Yeah.
great. We
Yeah, no,
know these
absolutely.
sports and we're totally into it. So, and, you get Americans getting medals. I
Mhm.
remember as a kid watching people step up and put their hand over their heart and win their medals. And I'd be like, tears. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. It's an
awesome.
emotional moment for everyone.
Yeah, you get to hear your national anthem, and then unfortunately, growing up in it, going to UCLA, being on the track team and competing at a relatively high level and all that, I never got to that level where I could even make it to the trials. I tried, I was close, but nobody's going to go down in history saying, "Oh yeah, Troy Haynes from UCLA, he was awesome. He did this." Oh yeah, I never even made it. So it was a dream and all that, but it was like, and again just knowing how things turned out is difficult here because we're just not in the public eye
Yeah.
unless it's
Yeah.
the Olympics.
Yeah, and I think just kind of going off of that, I think you really see that difference when you're competing internationally because people love track and field in Europe. Like it's crazy. Like everywhere, it's such a community thing. Like, if they have a street vault, like it's packed there. And it's just kind of that community event where everyone comes together. Like people will come from neighboring towns. Like it's
Right?
just beloved over there.
Wow, that would be awesome. You're talking about just a pole vault only gig where they just put.
Yeah, yeah. A couple of the ones I went to were pole vault only. I know in Poland, like that was a Diamond League level meet. I know pole vault for women's wasn't technically like a Diamond League sanctioned event, but they set it up in just kind of like one of the town square centers in Silesia, and it was beautiful. And like everyone was there. The crowd was really into it. So
Yeah, well, that's exciting. That'd be fun. That's something I would love to see a proliferation of that over here in the U.S. Both, high jump, pole vault, because the other trade secret, of course, is that you can't make any money doing track and field unless you're A, a sprinter, or B, a distance runner, which I find that,
or Mondo.
yeah, or Mondo, and you're breaking the world record every other time, right? And getting your performance
Yeah.
bonuses or whatever, right? So,
Good for
well,
him.
yeah, exactly. Oh no, I'm. stoked to see anything like that, especially for the field events,
Yeah.
because we're like the red-haired stepchild, where they're like, because you've seen the broadcast still, it's the same.
Yeah.
So it's been
Yeah. Yeah.
years.
No, it's
When
the
I was
live stream stuff is
almost
different.
40 years since I was at UCLA, and they were my senior year, they were showing our meets on Prime Ticket, and every sprint and every lap of the 10,000 for the men, and no field events, none, no
Yeah.
mentions of
Yeah.
what, nothing. And
Common issue.
they might, right, pop in. Hey, here's Chloe. She's running down the runway. Oh, look at
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And then gone. You might
I
get
think
one.
it's getting slightly better, but still maybe not where we need it to be. And I think a lot of times the live streams end up not working. Like I think it was at USA's, there was like a malfunction with the long jump one, and people were
Mhm.
upset. People were
Yeah.
very upset.
Yeah, well, we're it's a battle because we're battling some real monster organizations, NFL, college football,
Yeah.
huge, huge here in the U.S. Like unbelievable resources and money,
Mm,
well-oiled machines, right? They know what they're doing, putting on any kind of a broadcast. You got pregame show, you got your halftime show, you got your postgame show, and you've got everything else. Yeah, it would be great to see someone with some deep pockets
mm,
involved and say, hey, because we're missing the drama. Nobody understands, the vault as it goes back and forth,
yeah.
what is going on there. It's like you just pop in every once in a while and see somebody vault and you're like, oh, that's really cool. But it's disconnected, and
Yeah. Yeah.
you don't really know what's going on. And they don't tell you. They just got a few seconds in between races. And so they just say, hey, let's, take shots around the world here. Excuse me. So let's back up. Right at the end of your career, indoor and out, you said you got sixth place, your last NC2A. Was that what you were talking about when you got the?
No, 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 that was for USA. So I actually ended up placing second at this year's outdoor nationals. Yeah.
Okay, and that was it for Rutgers.
Yep. Yeah. After that, I moved home.
And then did you do indoors? Did you have any indoors left heading in, or because I know it's weird, it goes back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah, I did do indoors. Actually, indoors went pretty well. I remember I jumped to 472. It wasn't like a World Athletic Sanction event, so I don't think my mark really like pops up anywhere unless if you're looking at collegiate results, but jumped 472, which was technically, like a 1 centimeter PR. So I was super, super excited about that because that was only my second time over 470. And then I don't quite remember what happened at indoor NCAAs. I don't think I did great. I think I was definitely struggling that day, and I definitely didn't place. But sometimes you have a bad day. So
Right, right. So where's that now? This is that weird period. I remember in college, you get through this regular season, and then for us, summer started, right after NC2As, right? So early
yeah,
June,
yeah, it's
waves
long
were
season.
over, start the summer, unless you're higher level. If you're US level, then you're getting ready for nationals, right? And that used to
Mm,
be the TAC, we used to call it the TAC meet. TAC was the Athletic Congress. Now, I don't know what it is, USATF, whatever it is, but you've got the US nationals, right? And
yeah,
then worlds. Now
yep,
that's all finished, right? So now we're in that quasi training, recovering period that's what we call the fall as we're
yeah,
getting ready for indoor. And then, all kinds of athletes, it depends, don't really even do anything for indoor.
mm,
Some people ignore it completely. I wished I had. I just did an indoor competition for the last time in my career at age 61. I forget how old I was. I think I competed on my birthday, as a matter of fact. I went to where was it? Greensville or somewhere in Florida.
mm.
Anyway, Gainesville, and indoor high jump there just is a travesty. And the way the USATF treated us, you stick us in the little corner. You got like
Yeah.
40 square feet to run around and warm up in. It was bad. I can never figure out why we do it indoor for a high jump. But anyway, it's a different deal. So where are you going now? You got 3 years, right? And you're still competing now. I'm assuming both here at the U.S. level. And what's the highest level you've competed at as far as dealing with other athletes from around the world? You said you were over at the Diamond League and did something like that over in Europe.
Yeah, so I think highest level of competition would probably just be those international meets. Like this year, after I finished NCAAs, I went over to Italy. We did a meet there. So I was with Katie Moon and Emily Grove. Um, and then the one vaulter from South Dakota, Marlene Molo, was also there. So it was like a nice kind of, like American group, people that I was familiar with. And then came back home, went to USA's, so that was another pretty kind of big competition level. And then when I went back over, yeah, we did the competition in Poland. So that like the meet itself was a Diamond League meet, but within the Diamond League meet, sometimes there are events that aren't like quite Diamond League tier.
Right.
So I would say that was probably the highest level competition that I had been at. Yeah.
Cool. Did they
Uh,
do, is that on TV and all that too over there? Or did you guys get seen?
I don't know. I think my parents tried to find it, but I don't know if it was broadcasted. I'm assuming that it was because like the way they set it up was pole vault was kind of in like that little town square center, and then they also had shot put, and then high jump was also over there. So it was this nice kind of little like three event venue that they had set up with like little stands in the bleachers, just kind of set up on the street. There was like restaurants around, so it was a really great setup. It was very fun.
Right. Okay. So let's talk about this, Chloe. I find it interesting just because, I did the same thing. Like I graduated from UCLA and then I actually I didn't graduate right away. As my career ended, I was a senior, but I hadn't graduated.
Yeah.
So I was still there at school. I actually took 1987. I went to school in 80, 87 is a blur. It was weird. It was I had finished and I lost all my purpose because I was no longer on the team, but I
Yeah.
hadn't
Yeah.
graduated and I wasn't ready to go get a job. So I was just
I
kind of
hear you.
walking around campus, and I would go and I wasn't really training and, just really weird. And then 88 came up and I took that year off. I told my mom, I said, I'm not going to school. I'm not going to finish. I'm going to train for the trials. And she's like, oh, well, where are you going to live? She like boots me out of the house. I got to go get like two or three jobs, to keep myself afloat while I was trying to train
Yeah.
that, which was fine. You had to learn how to do that. And so I learned right away that it's a completely different world when you're even slightly separated from university because
Yeah.
I was no longer on campus. I moved to Long Beach, so I was like an hour drive away from UCLA, which
hmm
was training facilities and go see the trainers if you roll your ankle, go get your ankles taped, go stick your foot in an ice whirlpool if you roll your
Yeah.
ankle,
Yeah.
all those things, right? Those were gone and you're kind of on your own. You find out right away that it's really not set up for you. So what is that like now that you're on the outside? What's it like training, kind of as a quasi, a former used to be Rutgers and now finding your way on your own?
Yeah, I mean, and that was definitely something that kind of weighed into the factor of when I graduate, am I going to move back home and find a new coaching situation, or am I going to kind of stay at Rutgers and try and kind of, integrate myself into that system? Because I was given the opportunity where if I wanted to, I could have come on as like kind of like an assistant coach just to help out, and then that way I could still have access to all those things, which seemed really, really nice. But I think some of my other thoughts kind of outweighed that, and I ended up coming home and going to this training center. But what I'm finding is that people really do want to help. I think that the pole vault community is just really, really deep in connections and really, really wants to help people out. So, there's been a lot of instances where I'm talking to someone and they're like, oh, well, like my friend so and so is a chiropractor, or, they do recovery stuff, and they'd be happy to have you in. And yeah, so just like little connections like that, I think accumulate and create a really big difference. Because like you said, like I don't have access to a trainer and I don't have access to that medical staff that I would
Mhm.
have at like a Big Ten school. Um, but I think also my line of work kind of helps with a lot of that because I'm currently doing sports performance training at the high school level. So
Mhm.
the gym I work at is like fully equipped. It has all the equipment I could ever need for training, and that's maybe like 15 minutes down the road for me. So that's super convenient. And then I have my jumps club, so that has like a whole nother set of equipment, obviously like pole vault poles. My coach put in a lot of work to get me, like a new line of poles, since I no longer have the ones from Rutgers. So really just everyone kind of pitching in to help out has been huge, but it is challenging. And I think especially like as you're coming out of college, like I went to school, I got the exercise science degree, and I think that there almost is a little bit of guilt of like not using that in a sense, you know what I mean? Because I think ultimately at some point I would either like to coach pole vault at the collegiate level or do strength and conditioning at the collegiate level. So I kind of had to make that decision of like, am I going to invest my time into pole vault, even though I don't know if I'm going to make it to the level that I want to make it to?
Right.
Or do I just kind of play it safe and say like I'm going to put more into my career right now so that that way, like I can have pole vault still in my life, but maybe not as, not to that same degree. And I think what my parents were telling me is like, you're still healthy, you're still really young, we're here to support you in any way that you need. So at this point, like this is the time to really put yourself all in. And
Yeah.
yes, it might mean kind of taking a hit in that career sense, but it's I think to chase that dream and to chase that passion, it is definitely worth it.
Yeah.
And that's what like that's the other really challenging thing too is that, if you're looking for a job, like it's really difficult to tell an employer like, hey, once January rolls around, I might be gone for 2 weeks at the drop of a hat. So um,
Right.
definitely that was challenging, but at my workplace now is really, really understanding. They work with athletes, so they're really excited and just really welcoming. And then I've also been coaching high school track, so same thing with that. Like they understand that it's just kind of a lifestyle and you're gonna have to make a lot of sacrifices for the sport. So it's been really fun, but I'm happy with where I'm at, and I think that, with the support and the community around me, I'm gonna get through it.
Awesome. Yeah, that's I can say unequivocally that taking your shot when you're young and all that, I don't think you'll ever regret it. I
Yeah.
mean, I the one thing I can say is having been to that level where I was knocking on the door of getting there, knowing what I know now, I would definitely have a different attack plan. But having
Mhm.
gone through it, I don't have any regrets. Like I held on all the way to 1982. I was 28 years old, and I was like you. I had a degree in kinesiology from UCLA, but I put everything else on hold. I didn't become a graduate assistant. I didn't even know that was a thing, to be honest. If I would have asked, I would have. And then, I wasn't doing anything other than that. I was working three odd jobs. I had just kind of started and fell in love with golf. So I went and worked at a golf course,
Yeah.
but that's not great money, but it was enough if I did a bunch of that and then I got my free golf. So that was a perk. But it was like, you're going along and all of a sudden I was 28.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I still hadn't done anything. Like you're saying the guilt of not using your degree. I mean, I used to have people ask me, what are you gonna do with your kinesiology degree? You're gonna, be a trainer? And by that training, they meant like being in the training room and taping ankles and stuff like that. And I'm like, not my gig. I'm more of a biomechanics kind of, coaching mind and everything. So
Yeah.
I would think more along the line of what you're thinking, maybe, a strength and conditioning coach or a high level college coach or whatever.
Mm.
But, the one thing I can say is when everybody asks you, how did that turn out? It's like, well, I took my shot and I gave it as much as I had, as much as I knew how to give it, and like I said, I stayed till I was 28, which I think at the time was really pretty old for high jumpers and whatnot. Now I think they can last a little bit longer, but in the world of amateur athletics, I mean, you hear those stories, you watch them at every Olympics, whether it's
Yeah.
somebody bobsled or somebody swimming or somebody doing gymnastics, it's like amateur athletics, if you're Simone Biles and you get your commercials because you're one of the tops in the world, then gymnastics is great. But what
Yeah.
about the sixth and seventh person on the team that nobody knows their name? How did they
Mm.
survive? So it's like, it's just a trade secret that there isn't a lot of money in amateur athletics. And if
Yeah.
you've got to have your support team behind you. But
Yes. Yes, you
yeah,
do. And I think it's like kind of you have to be willing to lean into the uncomfortableness of like not having something steady, I guess is a good way of putting it. Because like you said, like I've just kind of been piecing things together. Like I do programming on the side, so I have a lot of online clients, and then like I work a little bit at the sports performance place and a little bit coaching high school, but then I'm also doing like landscaping on the side. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of this big ball of everything.
right. Yeah. So, but again, you can't leave and pick it up 5 years later. I mean, you
Yeah,
could, but the odds are
be very difficult.
slim, right? Yeah, it's difficult, and I don't think you'll regret taking your shot at it. How old are you now, Chloe? You're up to 23, 4? How old are you?
22, 22.
Ooh, nice. Just out. That's nice. I remember 1986, I was 22. So yeah, the world is still your oyster. So we got 3 years and Olympics, like you said, and these other meets along the way. Um, what would this is something that's been coming up a bit recently. Having been inside of it now, the way you are and seeing the telecast and all that, is track and field the way that it's being done now, is it like viable in the long term? I mean, is the sport going to flourish here in the US? It just seems like I remember one of my clients, wanted to go to the Nike Nationals this summer.
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, okay. So go up to Nike Nationals, and then of course they seem to use Eugene, Oregon for just about everything. So
Oh yeah.
Nike Nationals, and then the NC2A meet, right? Then the US
Yeah.
Nationals were there, right? So everybody's going to go to Eugene. Okay, great. And no offense to Eugene, great track town.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've been there.
Difficult to get to though.
Difficult to get to, but yeah, you get to Tracktown Pizza. You got a great venue with rabid fans up there. But again, I heard at this last U.S. national meet that the stands were kind of empty and that they were charging outrageous amounts of money, to get in. But then you're like, well, shouldn't it be packed, with thousands of screaming fans? And it was like, eh. So, and again, I had trouble finding a way to watch, either
Yeah.
on TV
Yeah.
or even just the results. I went on my ESPN Sports app and was looking for track and field, and I was like, I could not find it. I mean, after paid, more sports, Olympic sports, underwater sport,
Yeah.
anything looking through like desperate, and I couldn't find it. So I'm like, it's difficult. And I mean, what do you think long term? Where are we going with this sport of track and field? Is it going to survive, after 2028?
Yeah. No, that's a really good question to ask. And just kind of going off what you said about the location, like I absolutely love Hayward. Like I think it is beautiful track. It's a great location. But unfortunately for a lot of people, I think it is inaccessible. So it's not like you can be like, oh, like, hey, like track and field championships are happening out in Oregon this weekend. Like, why don't we just take a quick kind of like weekend trip? For many people that's not doable. So I'm almost thinking like if we had it in another location, and I don't know what that location would be because I just don't know a lot about the track facilities within the United States, but if we had another kind of like big track that is nice and could host one of these meets, I think kind of putting it there for a year, maybe seeing how that works out as far as attendance could be a really, really good kind of experiment for the sport. Um, and again, I don't really know where. I don't know if like it would be Texas or, if there's a nice track in Florida, but I think putting it in one of those areas where people can like more easily get flights to, I think that might do a lot for it. Um, and then also going back to what I said earlier, just kind of like the European style of doing track and field seems to bring out a lot of joy in the community and brings
Mm.
in a lot more engagement.
Yeah,
Um, like I said, like they put it kind of in the middle of those areas. And I think it is very strategic because then people know, like, hey, like, we have a track meet in town today. Like, how cool is that to be able to just like walk out your door and there it is? And of
yeah,
course, like, you're going to go and tell your family. And then, like you're right there with all those track and field stars that you really look up to or that, you saw that day and were like, wow, like, that's really impressive.
right,
So then you kind of have that engagement component where you're right there on the street with them, like you're probably having a conversation with them, that like they're stopping by and they're taking pictures afterwards, and just really kind of interacting with the community. So I think that that's why it's so community based there versus with us, like it feels very isolated from those kind of bigger sections. And I think actually like the Memphis Street Vault that I went to was the Ed Murphy Classic. I think they did a fantastic job with kind of like trying to bring in community ties with that. They put it right on Beale Street. So now all those people that are there also for like a bar night kind of get exposed to this sport, right? So now it's like, oh, I have a drink in my hand. I'm watching the sport. Like this is really cool. Maybe at some point, like I would want to come back here next year.
right.
So kind of making it a repeat event that is very community engaged. And I know like with their meet too, I think they also had some type of youth club come out and they had like the older stars kind of mentoring the younger kids. So now you also have that connection. So I think just finding different way to build connection within the sport is really important and maybe something that we could build on a little bit more with those competitions. So
Interesting. Yeah. The have you been to Mount Sac? out here on the West?
No, I haven't. That is on my list of competitions I really, really want to go to.
Yeah, well, let me know because if you make it next year, I will go out of my way to watch you vault and get a chance to meet you in person. It's
Yeah, yeah,
the
that'd be
place is
great.
amazing. It's the only thing that I can see, like you're saying, as far as the venue goes. I'm not sure how many people can sit there. It's really an amazing track and it's got a great history. It's got a huge scoreboard with, the video screen on it. So if you're running down the thing, you can watch yourself, running right at
Yeah,
it. Like
yeah,
if you were playing football and somebody's trying to chase you down from behind, and just, but it's the seating there, it's beautiful, but I just don't think that you can fit that many. But it's in LA. So it's like there should be access. It's one of those things I go, it's got to be more accessible, like you said, than Eugene. And it is West Coast. And it does have Nike money running through
yeah,
it. So
yeah.
I'm like, that could be another one. But yeah, I think I haven't heard yet, but I'm willing to bet they're going to do the trials and the games at the Coliseum in Los Angeles. Makes the
Really?
most.
Okay, cool.
I would. I know I would, just because of the history, the history in '84, there was the trials and the games, at the Coliseum. The
Yeah,
Coliseum was
yeah,
100,000 people you can fit in the Coliseum, and it's already set up. They've always had big football games there, Super Bowls and national championship games in football, whatever. Everything's been there.
yeah.
So
They have the capacity.
exactly, exactly. Big show. Well, I think about that. I think maybe we're trying to re-envision another way of packaging. What you said about the local thing, I was thinking about, um, when they do the American Ninja Warrior, right?
Yeah,
Because that's kind of same thing, right? It's like a traveling show. Every time I
yeah.
watch, when I do see it, they're in a different town. So they
Mm,
travel in with those big vans, right? And they set this thing up. It's like
yeah,
and everybody's got their roadies for their sports. So this is just like we're putting this together. You got the ramp wall, you've got whatever the events are. They're almost always the same, but sometimes they're a little bit different. And you're like, okay, but seems to be like that local kind of show where you're like, hey, we're in town. Like the circus is in town, right? So
yeah, yeah. Exactly. In a way,
and you get everybody down there, like you said, pick an area where you got a lot of foot traffic, and you say, hey, let's get a crowd going here where it
yeah.
doesn't.
Make a day out of it. People are gonna pick up their phone and be like, "Hey, like I was walking in town today, and I saw that this is set up. Like maybe we should go to it
Right,
tomorrow."
yeah,
I definitely think that that's a lot more achievable with the field events, and I think that maybe field events are kind of being neglected in that sense. Like their utility to track and field might be neglected sometimes. And I know that I might be biased because I am a pole vaulter, I am a field
right,
event. But I think especially like take a look at like stuff like Grand Slam track, you know what I mean? Like to exclude almost half of your events from that
right,
and then say that you're trying to save the sport is kind of like, I don't know. I don't fully agree with it. I think that that's,
yeah.
you're underutilizing a whole half of event groups that could really, really give you a lot of support and probably would enhance your event as opposed to, taking away from it. So,
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's some talk being generated from what I understand, current athletes like yourself, former athletes like myself, coaches, trainers, there is a growing frustration, I think, going on with how things are being done. You mentioned USATF and a lot of people just bristle. I'm just like, ugh, I'm not crazy about the way the sport is being run at the top. To me, it's like the vultures are hovering at the top and they're just there to get theirs, and
yeah,
they're not really into promoting the sport, helping the athletes grow, whatever. It's like, again, you're looking at the people that we're battling for our entertainment dollar. Like you're saying, we're trying to get people to even know what track and field is. How does this work? If you ask a common person, what's a dual meet? They would be like, a duel? What are you talking about? Dual meet? A duel? Are they fighting? No, no, duel. It's a dual meet. That's two teams, but they do
too.
the event. You score 5-3-1, and does that even happen anymore? I don't know. How do you get these things going? And it's like we need to come up with a way to rebrand, repackage, get people watching, like you said, and ad revenue would be nice. I keep thinking you did have one of the benefits of being in a major power conference because in my mind, the Big Ten and the SEC are ruling the sports world right now in college.
Yeah.
Football, basketball, and then to a lesser extent, the other sports, they may not be quite as dominant, but I forget the last however many out of the national champions in football, I think the last 15, they'd have to be almost equally spaced between the Big Ten and the SEC,
Yeah.
right? And that's the biggest sport here in the US right after pro football. So it's like, and it's a direct feeder into the other one, and they're both well-oiled machines. And now you've got NIL money and all the other stuff, it's,
Yeah, that's crazy in itself.
but you've
Uh,
got these resources and you've got, people that package and promote their stars and promote their teams. And, there's arguments over which one's more important, like the NBA is really a lot more about the stars than it is even about the teams. If you're a local fan, yeah, you root for your team, but what if, LeBron leaves the Lakers and goes back to Cleveland? It's like, what happens then?
yeah.
His
Yeah.
fans are going to go with him. They're going to watch him no matter what. You say, okay, well, he's on at a different time, but it's still LeBron.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you and I know Mondo, right? But if we said to the casual fan, have you ever heard of Mondo? They'd be like, what does he do?
See, funnily enough, like I think I have a lot of friends that are not into track and field at all. And they'll come up to me and be like, "Oh, like, did you see this guy? Like this Mondo guy from Sweden?" I'm like, "Yeah, like of course I've seen him." Like that's we hear about him all the time. But that's what I'm saying. Like I think there are certain people that stand out well beyond like the confines of our sport. And like no matter or they're more likely where if you're like talking to someone in the gym or something and I bring up that I pole vault, they're like, "Oh yeah, like that guy from Sweden, you know him?"
right.
So I think that there are certain stars within track and field that like really, really pop out at people, even if they're not into track and field at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We need to hitch the wagon
Yeah.
to them, right? We let them drag for a while, like, hey, let's get this groundswell of support. So coming up on another thing, Chloe, because you mentioned with your degree with this, tell me the title of it again so I don't it was sports
Exercise science.
exercise science. Thank you.
Yeah. So very, very similar to kinesiology, just different title.
Right. I had an undergrad in kinesiology, UCLA, and then I got a master's degree at Cal State Long Beach in exercise science. So
Mhm. Yeah.
um how I forgot that, who knows? My brain. Anyway, the applications to what you're doing, it sounds like you're in the right spot. Like you're doing high level training. I'm assuming you're writing some programs, right? You're working with different level athletes? Is it just high school athletes, or are you also training some? I found out when I started doing that there's junior Olympians, there's high school, there's collegiate, there's elite, there's Paralympians, and there's masters. And if I'm leaving anybody out, just tell me. But it's like all of a
No, I
sudden,
think that's pretty all encompassing right
right?
there.
And you've got all these different things, and it's like, okay,
Yeah.
where's the meet this weekend? Am I going? What am I doing? Now, but now that you're in that world, who's the guy that I'm trying to get him on another podcast? Sean Francis, Team Hoop.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of him.
Yeah. I find it because now I'm doing pole vault this year when I say coaching pole vault, I think it's like an advisory position because I did it very sparingly in high school. We didn't have a coach, and I was fortunate enough to work at another high school gig for a couple years,
Yeah.
two different high schools, couple years. So when I say I'm a pole vault coach, you could say that technically, but I don't see myself that way just because I'm one of those people that as I watch it, I'm going like, okay, I'm not even really sure what they did wrong. You saw the bar come down. But I'm like, were they too far out? Were they too close? I know
Yeah. Yeah.
pull up the bend, they went off to the side. Like, I don't see the pole vault the same way I do the jumps. Like I can
Gotcha.
jumps
I
really
mean,
quick.
I'm sure it's better than having no guidance whatsoever. So,
Well, thank you for that. I'm sure, but my athletes are probably sitting there going, Coach, what are you talking about? You don't know anything about the pole. So I ask, people like yourself. I've worked with Coach Anthony Kern. I've been to his clinics. I
yeah,
watch. but I'm one of those beginning to end kind of people. When I see something, I'm like, okay, if you were going to attack this and coach somebody from the ground up, let's say, or teach it, or teach the encyclopedia of pole vaulting, as told by Chloe Timberg, what would you do as far as, training someone? Like, how, let's say you've got yourself a young gymnast or acrobat, or, someone who comes up to you and says, I watched you vault and it looks like so much fun and you got so much energy and I heard you had this background and I think I could really do this. Like, what would you do with them?
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely depends on the person because there are some people that I'm telling you like pick up a pole and day one you can tell that they just click with it. You know what I mean? Like everything you give them, they catch on really fast and then you have them back to like six lefts, five lefts within a week or two.
Mhm.
But then I've also had athletes where that's not the case and they have a little bit more of a slow burn with kind of catching on and they still have a ton of potential. It just takes them a little bit longer to pick up on this stuff. So there is like for me, there's a very specific kind of like drill series that I go through to kind of get them to where they need to be. I think it all starts off the runway first, right? Because you're giving them an implement that they've probably never held before. It's super awkward. It's just a giant stick. So I think first just getting comfortable with like having that in your hand is the most important part, and then doing some kind of like walking drills on the turf to just understand that like, hey, all right, I need to get my right arm up, if you're a righty
Right,
and then making sure that they kind of understand how to apply the pressure. You know what I mean? So like hanging, being able to hang from that right arm and trusting that you have a grip on that pole is super, super important. So I think really just kind of building that trust with the implement and getting comfortable holding the implement is just the first step. And then once you get them to the runway, just kind of like working them back. So I usually will start at a one left or a two left and just kind of have them like try jumping into the pit, right? Because again, going back to that trust thing, like leaving the ground and kind of jumping over that metal box can be intimidating for a lot of people.
right.
So even if it's like a really, really bad jump and it makes really no resemblance to an actual pole vault, having them trust that, I think, is the first and foremost step. And then as you slowly start to build that trust, right, it's like, okay, now we can move back. We're still doing a straight pole. We're not really focusing on bending the pole, which is totally fine. I think a lot of times, like for the first year, a lot of kids aren't bending the pole. And I think sometimes that's where coaches try and get a little bit too eager because they're like, oh, like, the professional pole vaulters are bending the pole, so you have to. But it's like realistically for the first year that you're vaulting, you're probably just going to be straight pulling it and really working on like learning how to kick your feet up and getting inverted and trying to get upside down. So I think kind of learning that swing is probably the most important thing within that first year and just learning the positions. Um, but yeah, then after that, it's really just kind of moving back, right? Building up speed. You're learning how to sprint at full force towards the stationary box.
Right.
And then I think that's where, bending the pole kind of comes in if you have the right equipment, and that's where you start to learn that bottom arm. So it really is, it's a process, and I think that the process I use changes slightly from person to person depending on how confident they are with the implement and the event. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, what I'm noticing is for me, I was trained by a classic, what I want to call a cyclist. My coach was a little Romanian guy that was at Long Beach City College, and no matter what he coached, long jump, triple jump, high jump, especially, all he really talked about that I hear his little Romanian voice. I am the great athlete. You must do this for me. Like you got to pull up your feet. Your heels that don't come anywhere near your buttocks. You need to cycle your feet. I'm like, oh, cycling when you're running. Okay, like I had to filter what he said a lot of times, and that was one of the difficulties. But when you watched anybody trained by Elias, you would see them when they ran, this high cycling action,
Yeah.
knees as high as your hips, feet kicking you in the butt, really good technique. Now, he routinely kicked out 25 plus foot long jumpers in junior college. He would kick out, 40s, anywhere from high 40s to mid range 50 triple jumpers. And he had
Hmm.
2 7 8 high jumpers, and myself modestly is the third guy. I think, I don't know, he might have had other guys that were higher, but the ones that I remember, no. But I was like 222, 7 3 1/2. So big drop off. But one of those 2 7 8 guys went to the Olympics in '88. And Brian Stanton was the same way. Brian, if you're ever hearing this get in touch with me. I haven't seen Brian Stanton in 40 years, but he ran this beautiful high cycling, style. And I'm like, as I've trained and learned and grown through everything, I've learned, oh, well, if your cycling maintains, number one, it's really, your stride length is going to be at its max. If you're cycling your feet, because if you're, I don't know if you've seen it, if people shuffle their feet into
Yeah, yeah,
the
it's big.
takeoff, both long jump, triple jump, pole vault, whatever it is, if they go shuffle, 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 I'm like, well, if your stride length is dropping, your speed has to be dropping unless your rate picks up astronomically. You're not going to be able to even maintain. I think you're going to be
Yeah,
dropping
yeah,
speed, and it's almost like trying to power, and like power is not going to win. What's Mondo's best thing? What's Bubka's best thing? They were really, really fast, at like 10, I've heard 10-4, 100 meters with or without pole. It's hard to quantify the stories, right? But anyway, those are the little things that I pick up on. But the thing that amazes me when I'm listening to Curran coach his kids, it's like, okay, he watches the ball and he goes, all right, you're too close, whatever you what do you call it when you're under, right?
yeah, yeah,
You're under. So I want you to move back 2 feet. I want you to go back in the shed, grab the 160, move up two handhold. He's barking
yeah, yeah.
order,
The pole adjustments definitely like that is years of
right? That one is mind-boggling to me because I don't understand it at all. I mean, I get little hints. I'm like, okay, why did you do that? I mean, I understand when you're mushing out the pole,
yeah.
you need a stiffer pole. But then if you get a stiffer pole, do you hold can you hold it at the same length? Is it gonna be harder to bend? Shouldn't you then go back? I get lost in the
No, and
myriad.
I think that that is the intricacies of coaching pole vault because the answer to both like all those questions is just it depends. Depends
Right,
what you're trying to get the vaulter to achieve. And yeah, I don't even know how to think to explain that because it just like at this point comes very naturally where if I'm looking at a vault, I like know what pole they need to go to and if they need to go up and grip or down a grip depending on like how the trajectory of the pole moves.
right.
But it really it's just years of accumulating that. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's one of my favorites really to watch because it's also a very sequential event. And what I mean by that is you can't do one thing before you do the one before it. It's like you've got to go in order. Like you got to
yeah.
put the runway first. You got to plant, you got to swing, you got to invert, go up, do your turn, all that stuff. And if you watch it, of course, the higher you go, the slower everything seems to move. It's not as the sequence isn't as rushed, so you can kind of break it down a little better. I show that to high school kids with the high jump. If you watch the high jump at all, sometimes the only thing the kids know is they're watching the video. They go, oh, they really throw their head back and they get into this position. I'm like, yeah, they do, but they don't do it as they're taking off. Like you guys got to wait. Like you can't teach them how to swing until they
Yeah,
finish
until
the
they
plant,
know how
right?
to get their arms up into the plant.
So it's like you got to do the one, and I'm always preaching finish this move. You got
Yeah,
to finish it,
yeah.
and write it a little bit. Don't rush, to the next thing in the sequence.
Yeah, I think kind of going off of that, it's really important when you're coaching new vaulters too to just segment everything. You know what I mean? So I always tell people, I'm like, listen, like I know you want this beautiful jump and you want to finish the whole thing, but I'm like, if we're focusing on something in the plant, even if the rest of the jump afterwards just is terrible, I'm like, it's okay because you still achieved the one thing that we were working on in the plant.
Right.
So just kind of like knowing that it's okay to sacrifice other parts of the jump in order to work on that thing before, that building block before is really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's difficult too for a younger kid, right? Because they
Yeah.
don't have that experience and they, like you said too, they're looking for the result. And I don't know if you get this in the vault. I'm willing to think you probably do, but I've got kids that literally want to PR every practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're not even, they're like, well, I didn't even jump my best. I'm like, why would you think you're going to jump your best at a practice? Number one, you're not competing against anybody. Number two, therefore, you don't have any adrenaline, running through your body that's,
Yeah. Not at all.
upping your power level. It's like a power up in a video game, and so you're going through that and it's just like, yeah, I mean, I look at it and I go, you've only got, I'm here to tell you from personal experience, man, when the legs go, the rest of it goes. Like,
Yeah,
I
no, absolutely.
I think the last time I dunked on a basketball court, I was in my 40s. Now I'm 62. I'm almost 62. I keep moving myself ahead early so I can get used to it. So I'm 61, but I'm going to be 62 in February. But I keep telling everybody I'm already
Yeah,
60.
start getting in that mindset.
I'm just getting into the mindset early. So I had the kids and still teach PE, and they're like, "Hey, Mr. Haynes, you're tall. Can you dunk?" I'm like, "Hmm." I'm like, I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Touch the rim, I'm like, well, I'm 6'3". I'm like, I don't know. Can I touch the rim? So the other day, again, no warm up. So almost 62 years old. I'm like, if I do this, something's going to explode. I'm like, and against my better judgment, I ran 4 steps and jumped up and I still touched the rim. And I'm like, well, geez, if I can get my hand over the rim and I'm holding onto a ball, maybe I could dunk still, And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know. So I got to figure out if that's a goal, even to
You gotta
train.
start training for it.
Right? I thought that last year too. Like I said, I showed up at that meet it had been my first meet literally since I think I retired in '88. And I had not competed at a high jump since 1988. So it had been, I don't know, 26, right? 25 last year plus another 12, 37 years. Long time in between meets, let's say.
Yeah, yeah.
And then going back to my hated venues of indoors, which I've only been to 3 in my life and hated the experience every time. What was I thinking? In the middle of the whole thing, I remember thinking, what in God's name are you thinking? Here you are again in a
What
tiny
convinced
little
me to
area.
do this?
Yeah, I mean, in what world? A couple videos on the site, and that's it. Real quickly before we let you go, Chloe, what do you see coming up with you and your social media? It's been a while since I forget. I think I just came across, and it's weird the way it works with me with Instagram in particular, where I do most of my work. What are you doing with that? Is there any products you're promoting? And I want to find out how to let the world know about Chloe and what you're doing. So what
Yeah.
is going on with you on that front as far as self-promotion and that kind of stuff?
Absolutely. I mean, first and foremost, I just kind of try and stay authentic. Like I post a lot about how I train and what I'm doing in a training week and just, like fall training, stuff like that, just because I think it's good to be transparent about it. And then kind of going off of that, since I am taking the exercise science and like programming route, I've been doing, like I said, in-person kind of sports performance sessions in the Doylestown area. And then on top of that, I've also been taking on a lot of online clients. So I do it for all different kinds of athletes, but I find that like predominantly I get the most interest from pole vaulters or other track and field athletes, which is totally fine. Like I love working with them. That's great. Um, and then the other thing that I've been touching on or that I've been kind of like putting together, I'm still in the process of making like a bigger announcement about it. I know I've mentioned it on my stories a couple times, but I've been trying to promote kind of like almost a former collegiate athlete program, right? Where I basically take 3 weeks of programming, just kind of in that athletic style, like stuff that you would typically see in like your college weight room, but kind of like with the intention of making it fit your post-collegiate life a little bit better. You know what I mean? So, taking all those things that you really enjoyed about collegiate athletics and then trying to condense it into a version that you can do while you're working a job or you're going to grad school or something like that. So that way you can still kind of keep in touch with all those like great benefits that you got from collegiate athletics. Like people I think when they retire generally struggle with knowing how to work out in a non-collegiate way.
Right.
Trying to create their own programs can be difficult. And then I've also been trying to kind of create a channel that goes along with that so that we can have all of the former like collegiate athletes or athletes kind of be in that same channel together. They can ask questions, share resources if they have any. And then I was also planning to do kind of like weekly just educational things that will help them out. So yeah, just kind of trying to build that up. That's been a really big one. Talking to a lot of like former collegiate athletes and trying to get them involved in that community. So I
Awesome.
would say I'm using it mostly for training purposes and for promoting kind of that programming aspect.
Well, I'm looking at your site here, Chloe Timberg. You're up in the thousands of followers. I'm looking at your pinned posts, and then when I went in just a few, I did see you training, doing a two-footed jump, dragging a sled behind you. doing
Yeah.
an invert drill or a kip on a bar, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Doing a power clean from the floor. So, you see you doing a lot of things that you would do. Strong athletics, right? I love the shot of you with your trophy. That's
Yeah. From
awesome.
NCAA's, absolutely.
Join me for a lift. So I see you here. So if people want to find your stuff, I can tell you right now, Chloe's on Instagram at chloe.timberg. Then what else? Do you have a YouTube channel? Where can people go to find you and get involved in what you're doing?
Yeah, so honestly, most of the time I just have people kind of reach out to me over DM. I love to kind of start those conversations, and then from there, a lot of times that will result in some type of Zoom call or a follow-up call, so that way we can talk a little bit more about them and just kind of what their goals are, what they're looking for. And overall, just kind of build that initial connection, right? Because whoever I'm working with, like I like to have some idea of who they are, what they care about, what their priorities are. So I really like to start those conversations. I do have a YouTube channel, but I really use it for kind of like I do like exercise demos. So that way when I am making programs, I can link like my own video to the program so that way they have a video demonstration.
Right. Yeah.
So kind of more for personal purposes, but there is one out there technically. But I think Instagram, and just kind of using that DM feature has been my biggest kind of tool as I'm working through promoting that programming and working with athletes.
Awesome. Do you have a website yet?
I'm in the process of that. Yep, we are in the process of that. I have somebody actually that just did a mock-up of a website design, so we're kind of going through the final stages of reviewing that, and we'll see where that goes from there. So.
Awesome. Well, Chloe, I am your biggest fan. I think you're awesome. I want to see you do nothing but outstanding, outrageous things, which you do. I'd love to get a chance to meet you in person at Mount Sac. So do let me know.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm fingers crossed. I hope it's on
Oh,
my meet schedule
it,
this year.
it really is a great venue. It's a lot of the meets during the year. I know there's different ones, the Penn relays and there's Drake, there's different ones back east that I've never been a part of, but I do know they exist. And I remember, all the time reading the results. When I was back in the day, we read the newspapers. I'd be reading through the newspaper at the end, and you'd see these meets, and you're, looking down to find the event and see who came in first, second, or third. So now one of the really big events is Mount Sac out here, and
Yeah. Yeah,
it
it's
has its
definitely
high
been fun.
school component, but it's really mostly both a high level college and also elite athlete meet.
Yeah.
So people have already graduated from college, but they're still competing, and they're generally pretty high level in the U.S. or maybe even some world athletes will make it there.
Definitely.
It's part of it's one of those bigger, I'm sure, rated or ranked meets, like you get more points for it, right? And
Yeah, I think it is.
that kind of thing. So yeah, it's a great venue. And then again, if you want to reach Chloe, look up Chloe Timberg on Instagram, send her a DM, ask questions about training or vaulting, and you can also find her on her YouTube channel, which I'm going to look for and subscribe to. And then, man, just can't wait to see what happens next. So keep us in the loop.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate your
Oh,
time.
always fun. All right. Have a great one, Chloe.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye. And that's going to wrap it up for us here on Raise the Bar. We just did Chloe 2.0, second time through with Chloe Timberg. Just a ball of fire and energy, that one. She is one of the top vaulters in the US, and she is climbing the ladder, and she's trying to get ready for 2028 here in Los Angeles. The Olympics are coming, so she's got another 3 years-ish, 2.5, and just excited to see what she's going to do. And you can follow her on her Instagram, Chloe Timberg. You can follow her on her YouTube channel, and you can be looking for her website, which is going to be coming out soon. And until next time, that's going to do it here. I'm your host, Troy Haynes, and we will talk to you again soon about how to raise the bar. Take care.